David Morgan is an expert on silver, gold, and precious metals investments. He's a world-renowned lecturer appearing on CNBC and the Fox Business Channel. He's an author, having penned Get the Skinny on silver investing. And Mr. Morgan is a regular contributor and friend of the Ellis Martin Report. David, welcome to the Ellis Martin Report.
Great to be with you, Ellis.
I received more than one email from a couple of our mutual followers, and I'm really surprised at you, David. You and I have been friends for quite some time, over the years, and really, I don't know how you can do it. It seems you were, dead wrong saying that silver is money in the Chinese language. You can't just say that without backing that up with some sort of facts, and you're a factual guy, and in this case, you just didn't check the facts, did you?
Well, it was more of a slip of memory, I guess. Hopefully, people that follow what you and I do, follow me, follow you, follow the sector, will realize I'm only human. I was told by a very dear Chinese friend of mine that the symbol for a bank is basically a house with silver bars in it. It's basically a bank or a storehouse for silver. Gold is more associated, the character for gold is more associated with money. There isn't, as far as I can determine, and I'm not Chinese, and you have to get a language expert, and I don't want to mince words, but I was incorrect. I was wrong. I'll admit it. When I said that symbol was money, it wasn't. That symbol really is closer to meaning a bank. Certainly a financial institution, and it certainly has significance. When I went back and checked what I was first told, this person that pointed it out to me was exactly correct, and I was wrong. So I think it goes on. I actually took the time to let Kiko know that I'd made an error, and they have actually put some kind of nomenclature on the video, I guess, that points out that I did make a boo-boo, and so that's going to propagate through the web. So I think anywhere that video is being linked, as long as it's the Kiko video, should show up probably in the next 24 hours or so. So all I can say is, hey, folks, I'm human.
No, that's fair enough, and I appreciate your honesty in coming out and admitting that you did make a mistake. I certainly make them all the time, unfortunately. It's quite possible that you might have more followers in China than you could have combined around the rest of the world. You don't know, do you?
I don't. I do know that when I was there, and of course Hong Kong is sort of a subset of China. I've been to Hong Kong much more than I've been to inland China, but I seem to do have a fairly good base there. It's really hard to detect. I wish I could, press a button and learn a new language. It would be so awesome to be able to speak Mandarin. But, and of course I'm in a very small context because I'm meeting with, institutions, bankers, kind of the equivalent of the Silver Institute. I don't really want to mischaracterize it. I don't want anyone coming back at me again that you're wrong. But anyway, that was in the mainland China. On the Hong Kong, of course, I'm more dealing with, again, institutions, banks, money managers, hedge funds, and of course the people that participate in the trade show itself, although I have to submit that the trade show sector in Hong Kong specifically is a different category caliber than you would get at, say, a resource show in the United States or Canada. It's a lot more institutional oriented. It's a lot more bankers and main brokers that attend that than what you might have in your average quote-unquote gold show in the States or in Canada.
When we think about institutions and hedge fund managers, brokers, what have you, that money's got to come from somewhere. Does it not come at some point from the individual investor?
A great deal of it does. I think it's really wise that you point that out. Basically, what I've been writing in the last Morgan Report, and I'm going to re-emphasize it in the next one that's going to be going out here in another 10 days or so, is that the next leg up, I think, is pretty much a sure thing. And the reason being is that you need more buying pressure. And it's coming in, but it's coming in the form of institutions, the hedge fund types, the managed money, and the pension managers. Now, the pension managers, and some of the other money managers too, it's just a collection of basically the middle class that has money to invest, really on the pension side more than anywhere else. This is stealth money, meaning that the average worker out there that's contributing something to their retirement, either through a direct contribution program or an indirect one, really turns it over anonymously to some type of a pension fund manager. They don't really think about it. It just, comes out of their check and it goes into their retirement. They don't really know who manages it or where it goes in most cases. Some people do, but most have no idea. And that money now, some of it, is being moved into the physical bullion market. And that's extremely bullish because collectively a bunch of regular folks, you might say, moving into the sector through a collective, through these pension fund managers and other money-type managers, is going to put more buying pressure into the market. And at the same time, you'll have the stalwarts that have been there for a while. You've got your Central Fund of Canada, your physical silver trust that's over a year old now, the old SLV, and several others. And I doubt they're done buying. So new buying coming in on top of buying that's already taken place, that's being tightly held, and potential to buy even more. So I'm still very bullish just on that fundamental, let alone the other side of the coin, which of course is that the financial sector continues to wax and wane between fear here and fear there and fear everywhere, based on the fact that the monetary system is really grinding to an end here at some point, with the euro currently having the focus. But once the euro is quote-unquote resolved, it'll focus maybe on Japan, and then could focus back on the U.S. dollar, and it's going to go all around, because they all basically have the same issue, and that's sovereign debt that's owed by the citizenry that cannot be paid back. It's absolutely mathematically impossible.
Well, all those reasons exist, and they've existed for a while, and it's in the news, and it's more prevalently in the news as the days and weeks and months continue. And as you said, the institutions, they've been in it for a while, at least on some introductory level. So would you say that the switch has been thrown, and the institutions are just going to take a position on the money that's been on the sidelines for a while with all these pension funds and what have you, and we can count on that leg coming up right now?
I'm very cautious with what I say, even though, as we pointed out, I do make mistakes from time to time. But I would say that the data that I have is primarily on the bullion side, and this comes from, actually now it's 3 of the better-sized wholesalers/retailers in the industry in the United States. 3 separate entities. None of them, maybe they talk to each other. I don't think they do. And they've all told me that larger institutions are coming into the physical bullion market, both in the gold and silver sector. So that's what from my aspect, that's what you really want. Of course, I'm favorable to the mining share still, very much. But it's all based on the, physical gold and silver markets primarily. And that's what all 3 of these entities are indicating to me, that it's established and it's probably going to continue. And again, that's the case. And it's going to be instantaneous, no. I'm sticking with my forecast this year. Subject to change on, world events or whatever. But I really do think that silver will kind of will probably double this year. If you start at the beginning of the year, late December of last year, it was around under 30. Now we're up at 35-ish or so. I think we can be at 60 by the end of the year. I think it's going to take a lot more work to get it into the 40 range, but I think it'll get there this year. And then once it gets there, it could probably move into the 45 range fairly soon. And then once it breaks through the psychological long-held barrier, plus you don't know what the paper traders are going to do once it starts approaching the $48 to $50 level, you can pretty much bet they're going to try to defend that area. But I think at some point that'll give way, and once that happens, we're into new nominal highs, certainly not new highs in real terms, but in nominal terms and in psychological terms. Most people, unfortunately, don't even understand that, they understand it, but they don't think about it, that, $50 in 2012 is not the same as $50 in 1980, but they might not think about it. Oh, it's a new high, it's 52, it's above the old high, my goodness, silver's going higher, that kind of thing. And, of course, again, in real terms, it's not, but the psychological advantage of having an all-time, quote-unquote, nominal new high could move the market quite a bit. You have a lot of people that just thought, it's not a great market, and now it's something new, and they'll jump in based on a new high. There's a lot of traders that actually do that.
Well, silver is very, very attractive at $33, $34, $35 an ounce. And I've got to tell you, when we spoke a couple of months ago and silver dropped below 30, because you said that if it falls before 30, it would be a good idea to get some. I did exactly that. If it doubles this year, I, as an individual investor, I'm going to be very, very happy.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I don't want to pat myself on the back too often. Certainly I never get it right all the time, and no one does. But, I made a comment, I don't remember if it was your show or not, that I said, what I think is quite likely is, well, one, to say the $30 level. There are a lot of people that thought, it's going to go to the low 20s. And I said, boy, I'd love to see it touch 26 again and test that area one more time, but it may not. I don't, at this point, think that it will. And anyway, I said, look, the silver could just go 30, 31, 2, 3, 4, 5, 36, 36, 37, and all of a sudden there's all these people on the sidelines that are silver fans or silver bulls that are saying, well, I thought it was supposed to go down. Well, these bull markets can fool you, I mean, it's a bull market. Don't forget that. And so all of a sudden you're up, $7 on 30, so what's that, 25%, 30%, and people are going to, well, I don't want to buy it now, it's too high, and then it keeps moving and whatever. So I really am favorable to some of these just dollar cost averaging plans, or if I make a call like buy below 30, I mean, take me seriously. Does that mean you can't buy it at 26? Don't know. The 26 number is a bit of a fallacy, because when it did hit, and it didn't even hit 26.00, it hit 26 and change. So few trades took place there, and it went right back up. I mean, to think that you could actually buy it at that low is not thinking very clearly, because people don't understand how markets move that you think can actually do it then. Now, when it hits there, and if you're right at your computer and you got your broker on speed dial, you could probably lock in a price that's pretty favorable, but you're not going to get that exact price unless you are in the futures market. You had that price pegged ahead of time, and you had already got an order in that says go long at 26, I'll make up the number 35, and your trade executed out, but the next one in that was going to be executed was 26.47 or whatever. So the point being that those spike lows are spikes. They are not much traded there, and it came right back up. That's strength. That's strength in the market. And, of course, it's my job to, I've learned this stuff, experience whatever, and, I always love to teach more, and hopefully that's a lesson learned for people that are listening to the show, because, there's lots of intelligent guys out there, and there's lots of good technical work, but it's just a tool. I think if you really don't understand the fundamentals of what silver is, what it can do, and what it provides in an environment like this, again, I really feel strongly, and this is a feeling or my thought, it's a belief, it's not an absolute fact, but I absolutely believe silver will be the better place to be as this thing unwinds further, not gold. Now, having said that, I want to be consistent. I've always advocated you should have both. And to go a step further, the older you are, probably the more you should actually favor gold over silver, because silver is much more volatile, and you cannot take the ups and downs. You're probably better off with gold. I mean, gold has not had a down year yet. It's got 11 years of consistently being higher year over year. Well, that's not true for silver. So, although it's still in a major bull market, and from the beginning of the bull market, it's actually outperformed gold, but the ride is a rough one.
I haven't heard you mention this once during this entire conversation. We started out with us talking about silver being money. What about the industrial factor with regard to silver, which is used widely around the world? Is that just now irrelevant with all the speculation?
No, it's not. I mean, one of my mentors and someone I dearly cared about, no longer with us, Harry Brown, and Harry and I got fairly close before he passed on. I'd read his work and in his books and admired him from afar for a long time, and then I again got to meet him and spend some fairly significant time with him. And Harry would say that silver is both an industrial metal and a monetary metal. And he would say, and of course it annoyed me, that silver was like 90% industrial and 10% money. And I disagree with it, but, I don't want to nitpick either. There's no precise thing. I mean, if you want to go by the numbers, roughly 50% of the market's industrial. The other 50% is investment, jewelry, silverware, that type of thing. So, but what's important to know about both silver and gold is it's really the investment demand that drives it higher. If it was only industrial demand and not one person on the planet cared to own silver as either a commodity or as money or some asset that they felt was better than holding a piece of paper or an electronic digit, if everyone had that same belief, then you would have basically have a silver surplus, if you can believe the numbers coming out of GFMS and CPM Group. And I really don't dispute those numbers that much. I think that they're both fairly accurate. I think they're probably as accurate as those respective groups can, pull together. So the point is that if there wasn't investment demand, it wouldn't be at the price it's at. Of course, gold is the same thing, but it's just because of the fact that gold has always been money or considered money. Silver, you could argue, hasn't always. I'd argue, as you saw in my lecture, I mean, the only mistake I made that I know of on the silver is money argument was the Chinese character situation. But silver's certainly been money, basically for longer periods and used more often. The reason is that actually the specie, the coin itself, was exchanged in hands from the masses over and over and over again throughout history. Very few were actually trading in gold coin. Not that didn't happen, but let's face it, as you go to the grocery store, you were using silver, as the grocery store is the open market in those days. But the point being that silver's been traded and used as money, many more transactions than gold has. But it is industrial. I've never said it's only money. I think I've been very clear, but to make the point again, yeah, it's an industrial metal. And increasing. The amount of silver used in industry more than a decade ago now is roughly 35%. Now we're roughly 55%. So it's certainly an important key component of the silver demand. But again, you have to look at the total demand, and it's the investment demand that drives the price higher. Same as gold. I mean, there wasn't much investment demand in 2000. Now there's significant investment demand. Central banks became net buyers over a year ago, and so demand upon demand is pushing gold higher and higher and higher in price. And I think that trend is going to continue. I think until this financial debacle unwinds one way or the other, there's going to be more and more demand for precious metals.
When are we going to see the switch thrown again? Because it's happened before with precious metal stocks, gold and silver stocks.
Well, great question. And we just got through with the mastermind series I have with the top-level service that we have on the website, and we had a gentleman that I know I've known for years, Frank Barbera. He did a great lecture on how undervalued the gold stocks are and where he thinks they're going. And I really like Frank's work. He and I both, I agree with him, we both think we're on the cusp. Is it going to be this month or next month? I don't know. But I think it's close enough that you really want to take a serious look. I think if you have a portfolio and you're disgusted with it, weed out the dogs, do some homework. Look at the ones that you own and ask yourself really why you own them. And if you can't find a better company, then hold it. If you know of a better company, sell it and replace it with a better one. But you're really, in my view, my opinion, that's the sector you're really going to want to be in. I really believe that the next major leg up in this market, which is probably going to start in this year and probably continue for several more, who knows, couple, 3, 4 more years, I don't know. At least that long. I think we're looking at, at least a few years, is going to be significant. It's going to be one of those things that if you held, a good mining company for the next 3 to 5 years, you're going to be, very, very happy. Of course, you don't want to own just one. You want to spread out, but you don't need to own 100 either. So that's my... that's all research. Of course, it's opinion. I have to say that, but I mean, there's a lot of study, work, and analysis that's gone into that forecast. Believe me, it's not just because I wanted to do it. There's a lot that could be said. I don't have time, and it wouldn't really make sense on the radio because you have to be looking at the charts and the indicators. But it does make a lot of sense to me that's what the future holds for us.
Should I pull my money out of my hypothetical retirement fund and put it into gold and silver bullion and stocks?
Well, I wouldn't give individual advice. I can't. And, it's your choice. I mean, basically, one of our friends that was at the Palm Springs show, the one where he made this little error, or big error, I think it was, said, the panel was asked how much money should you put in the sector. And the more gray-haired conservative guys like me said, 20 or 30%. And he said, 100%. And, again, it's an individual choice. I mean, some people are not comfortable with that amount, And there's this prudent man law that basically says you really cannot state to put all your eggs in one basket. It's not prudent to do so.
Let me ask you this final question here. What do you think most gold and silver investors are missing right now?
Well, this is on a philosophical side, but it's very close to my heart. And this is that a lot of gold and silver investors, in my strong view, are focused on protecting wealth, which makes sense. Of course, certainly that's one of the keys. And, having capital gains in real terms. In other words, no matter what the rate of inflation is, they come out ahead because the increase in purchasing power is significantly greater than whatever the inflation rate is. But both of those miss, I think, the more important point. And the more important point is that freedom is the main thing at issue here, in my view. And freedom is more important than, I think, any amount of money. I used to start all my lectures, on the fundamentals of the silver and gold market and go through it. And then at the end, almost always in the beginning, I would talk about for just a couple of minutes about how important freedom is, and I'd usually wind up saying something along the lines of, it really doesn't matter how much money you've made in this market if you don't have the ability to, buy whatever car you want, drive it wherever you want, go to whatever country you want, take whatever vacation you want, etc. In other words, if you lose your freedom, no matter what amount of money you have, it doesn't make up for that. And I think a lot of gold and silver investors are losing sight of the fact of how much freedoms are being drained away because of the political system that's currently in place globally, really. I mean, there's more and more clampdowns on, financial transactions. Everyone wants to know what everyone else is doing. You see something funny at an airport, talk to somebody. The Patriot Act, I think, that speaks for itself if you've looked into it even on a cursory level. The TSA, and on and on and on it goes. So, in my opinion, in my belief, there are things that are worth fighting for. I'm not saying violent. I'm a Gandhi lover. I think, the nonviolent approach is the best approach. But first you have to understand what the real value is. And to me, again, I think I strongly believe freedom is more important than any amount of money. And, when Patrick Henry gave his stirring speech, I read a little more on it recently, and I forget the exact idea, so something's going to come back here wrong, David, but the idea was that in that room there were a lot of undecided people. But he was such a great speaker that his words moved so many in that room to become on the side of fighting for liberty. And it didn't end exactly this way, but the essence of what he said was, "As for you, gentlemen, I do not know. But as for me, give me liberty or give me death." So he wasn't putting them on the spot. He wasn't saying that you have to agree with me. He wasn't saying anything. He's saying, for you, I don't know. That's your choice. And he did so powerfully. And of course, all that he said before that close had got them just really thinking and stirred up emotionally and intellectually. I mean, as a whole being, they were stirred up. And then he closed with that. And so then he kind of put the spotlight on them. It's like, for you, I don't know. But for me, it's worth dying for. That's how important it is. And boy, the room exploded, really. And that was basically the tipping point. So, I'm not saying much more than that, but to me, I think it has to be said, and it's something that not many on the speaking circuit go into. I certainly haven't done it myself in quite some time, but I really appreciate the question, and you can tell I'm probably getting a little emotional on it, but it's really, really important. The reason being, it's for all of us, and for those beyond us, the kids out there, the grandkids out there. I mean, that's what you want to leave them. Yeah, you can leave them a pile of money. Okay, that's great, but what good, again, is it if they can't, choose their own occupation, as an example, or live where they want to live, for an example, or that type of thing. So, end of speech, but thanks. It's obviously, to me, a very important point about the whole gold and silver story that very seldom gets talked about.
Well, don't you sound like a bit of a right-wing wing nut?
Yeah, well, I've been called worse than that, but...
Can you imagine? Can you imagine that kind of speech that you just made, and that I really I take to heart these days is considered perhaps politically incorrect? You flag waver, you?
Yeah, I'm sure it would probably be considered politically incorrect in many circles, and that's the whole point, isn't it? Because if free speech isn't free, that's probably the number one founding philosophy, for lack of a better word, of the founding fathers. If you have free speech, then the freedom to express your own ideas is very important. And a lot of, freedom fighters, if you want to call them that, don't really get that. I mean, what that means is that somebody that is diametrically opposed to my point of view has an equal right to express their opinion, just as strongly as I could express mine. But a lot of people leave it out, and you're getting marginalized. And then, of course, we could go on this topic forever, and I really don't care to. But, it is important, extremely important. And, of course, the newsletter industry, probably above any other, has, won time and time and time and time again on the freedom of speech issue. Because basically, it still exists, or at least the last time it went to court, it exists, and you are allowed to express your opinion.
I was talking to a friend about this this morning, based on what you said and what we've covered before in previous interviews. And the fact remains is that where prosperity exists in the world, in this country, everywhere in the world, in China, in Russia, wherever it is, in Europe, it's because of American values. We have Americanized the world. People can poo-poo us however they'd like to, but the fact remains is our system, with all its faults and all of its pluses, is responsible for a lot of the prosperity, the happiness, and freedom that exist in the world.
Yeah, I'll comment and add on to that. Basically, to be a bit more specific, one, I agree, and to be more specific, it's the rule of law. Because if it basically says that you have to do what you say you're going to do. And if you don't, then there's the tort system. You can go to court over it. But once you have that in place, where, in other words, your word is law, or what you say you're going to carry out, then that makes the contract a lot better. But if you're oozy and there's no law to be behind it, and it's that gets real loosey-goosey, and there aren't anything well-defined. But once you're on the spot, I'm going to produce X amount of widgets every week, and I'm going to pay this much for them, and I'm going to deliver them for this price, and all that's done, it makes doing business extremely efficient. And that rule of law is what's so important. Well, that, in my opinion, is part of the problem. It's breaking down. The courts are getting loosey-goosey, What does the word is, what is. All this stuff has gone on lately that's laughable but not funny in the least way. And that's, again, part of the problem. If you don't have the court system backing up the rule of law, remember, we're not a democracy. We're a constitutional republic. It isn't majority rule. Democracy means mob rule. I mean, the mob usually doesn't get it right all the time. I mean, the mob gets really excited and decides that, they want your car or something. I mean, you don't know what mob rule is going to do. But rule of law means that the individual has the right as long as they aren't within the law. In other words, you make a contract, you do it, and someone else doesn't like it, but you're within the law, you can be defended on that. So the individual has their God-given, constitutionally secured rights protected by the law. Of course, again, to be in the real world, that situation has been breaking down for the last couple decades at least.
And we're not making widgets anymore over here.
No, we're not.
David, themorganreport.com, silver-investor.com for our new listeners, and there are always new people coming in. Tell us about your website.
Okay, it's, as you said, themorganreport.com, and you can sign up for a free letter, which comes out every weekend. Economic viewpoints, kind of all the stuff I do during the week, interviews like this, we usually post them on that. So if you don't have time to follow us on Twitter or on the YouTube channel, you can just get on the mailing list, and we'll send you like 3 or 4 links of everything that was done during the week. And we give you other opportunities, such as some coin dealers that I know and trust, other offers. In fact, just one that I did many years ago is I turned everybody on to the Skype system, which is about the best system for international phone calls that I can think of. And I got some feedback on that. Geez, Dave, thanks. Just I didn't realize what a gift that was to point this out to me. Kept my phone bill to practically nothing. So anyway, we try to take care of our free readers, and then of course it goes up from there. The higher the paid service is our best thinking, our best research, our best effort to help people make money in the sector.
Well, David, I appreciate 2 things, the continuing education and your coming clean on your lack of knowledge about the Chinese language on the Ellis Martin Report.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure.
I've been speaking with David Morgan. Once again, the website is themorganreport.com. Hear this segment again on our website, ellismartinreport.com.